The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Pilate said to Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you say this on your own, or have others told you about me?" Pilate answered, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom does not belong to this world. If my kingdom did belong to this world, my attendants would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not here." So Pilate said to him, "Then you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." The Gospel of the Lord.
When Blessed Miguel Pro, whose feast day we celebrated on Friday, stared down the firing squad ordered to execute him, he raised his arms in the form of a cross, a crucifix in one hand, a rosary in the other, and with his last breaths simply shouted, "Viva Cristo Rey! Long live Christ the King!" Pro, a Jesuit priest, lived in a Mexico that lived under a strict and oppressive anti-Catholic government. Under the 1917 Mexican Constitution, monastic orders were banned. Religious entities were forbidden from owning property. Priests and religious were deprived of several basic human rights, including the ability to wear their religious clothing in public, to comment on public affairs, or even to vote. Nonetheless, Pro continued to minister dutifully to his flock, celebrating the Mass and other sacraments with small groups of Catholics clandestinely, under the cover of darkness and in private homes. Although he was arrested and released on a number of times, in November of 1927, a failed assassination attempt on the then president, Alvaro Obregón, provided a convenient pretext for his arrest and execution. And an execution, I'll say, also without the formality of a trial. Miguel Pro's last days and final words, then, friends, provide a stunning witness to the reality of today's celebration. That there is no nation or government of this world that can be our abiding home, and that there is no earthly ruler who has a greater love or care for his people than our Lord Jesus Christ. Miguel Pro's life and death are profound signs of the ultimate hope that no matter how severe the suffering or persecution of this life may be, that our God calls us to another kingdom, to his own perfect kingdom, the kingdom of everlasting happiness and joy and peace. And though we tend to cringe a bit at the thought of an absolute monarch, though we tend to cringe at the thought of one with absolute power and authority and control, And we do so rightly, since power and control, unchecked and mixed with the fallenness of the human condition we've experienced, often leads to bad things. We're rightfully reticent. But friends, Christ comes as a different sort of king. A king who can only be good, who can only be just, a king for whom corruption and abuse of power is impossible. This is a king who has won our allegiance not by force of arms or impassioned rhetoric, but by offering himself totally, fully, completely for our sake on the wood of the cross. He's won our allegiance by his love and by his sacrifice. It's true that there will always be moments when our allegiance to him will waver, where other kings will come promising greater freedom, better happiness, faster prosperity, or deeper truth. Our history has been filled with kings and presidents, with governments and parties who have all promised the same, to be the answer to all our problems, who have promised peace and freedom, prosperity and truth and justice. And while our worldly leaders and governments can certainly bring elements of those things, and while our love for country has its place, those things must always be tempered by our love for God. There is no nation, no government, no party, nor leader who can truly save, who can give us all that we need. It's God, and only God, who can do so. And he does so by offering his life for us, by offering his life on the cross for our salvation. Like Miguel Pro, there will be times when following our true King will require our own sacrifice, when it will cause apparent pain and suffering, where a kingship of fear and force and intimidation and rhetoric will be far more glamorous and convincing than the kingship of sacrifice, generosity, and love. But friends, we cannot be deterred. We cannot be deterred because what our God, our true King, offers us is a peace and a joy, a happiness and a freedom that go beyond all things. What he promises us is a kingdom that is our true home and that transcends the brokenness and the fallenness of this one. And so, as we gather around this table of sacrifice this morning, where Christ comes to us in his very body and blood, soul and divinity, where we receive the tangible reality of our God's ultimate kingship, may we be emboldened to renew our allegiance to him, to seek to imitate his kingship with our own sacrifice, our own generosity, our own love, to keep our eyes fixed on his kingdom so that we might live with the boldness and the courage of Miguel Pro, to proclaim God's kingdom with every ounce and every fiber of our being, no matter the cost or price. Indeed, Viva Cristo Rey. Long live Christ, our King.